Producing is basically making things happen. It is actually about creating. It's not for films to give messages to people. Films, they exist to exist, and they convey what they need to convey. The West, when they look at the Arab world, they think that anything works for all of us, and this is not correct. I want to believe that we can bring stories that we want really to tell and not what we are expected to tell.
Hi everyone, I am Moza and this is the Ajyal Show podcast. In today's episode, get ready to dive into the world of filmmaking with an acclaimed producer whose expertise know no limits. As the co-founder of the Attic Productions, she's been at the frontier of crafting stories for the screen. From feature documentaries to fiction films, our guest today has a portfolio that's equally impressive and diverse. In addition to a special talent that adds depth into her already remarkable career, a passion for singing. Get ready to be inspired with our very special guest, Jana Wehbe.
Thank you, Moza. Thank you for this introduction. It means a lot, and thank you for having me.
How is Doha? How has been your stay?
I love Doha. It's for me, it's like a retreat. I always come here to work with the DFI on Kumra, basically. And I had the opportunity as well to work on Ajyal in one edition so far. But the city calms me so much. There's a vibe of peace and safety in here that allows me to read any book that I still didn't read, watch the films that I haven't watched. So, I feel it's a second city for me.
We're very excited. We got to catch you before your flight. What are your plans?
Well, as you said, I have a busy life somehow, and I'm always on the run, and I wear so many hats. I try to produce my films, then I try as well sometimes to line produce other films. I work for the industry people, for the industry department at DFI. I run and I am the executive producer director of a festival called REEF, which is Rural Encounters on Environment and Films. So now, post-Kumra, it's time to get into the production of a new feature documentary by a director called Nicolas Khoury. And this is effectively a project I picked last year from Kumra.
So let's start by deconstructing all the big terms you just mentioned. Let's start with producing. How would you define producing for an audience that is not really into the film industry without any knowledge about the film industry?
Thank you for this question. I was thinking just before our episode that if I'm asked this question, how would I answer it? Because you can have a lot of interpretations for this, but mainly I can say that producing is basically making things happen. It is actually about creating. And for creating, you need to have some assets. For the creative producer, it is about creating from the creative perspective, but as well from the managerial side. So it's two things. Some people think that the producers or producing is about money placing, or the producers are, sitting on big banks and big accounts of money, but it's not the case. They tend to not make the difference between a producer and the financier. So the financier for us is people we go for to bring financing to the films. But producing is about making a vision happen. And this is basically the director's vision. But being here from A to Z. So this is someone who is making an idea be a film, but who is here from the beginning till the very, very end.
How is that different from what the director does?
Well, for me, the director is, of course, he's like the chief of orchestra, let's say. He's orchestrating all the elements creatively to basically execute his vision and direct the film. And when you say direct the film, it's about directing all the aspects of how he wants to actualize his vision. The difference with the producer is that the producer is here to make this happen. So he is here to translate this into actually numbers, plans, strategy from both aspects, the creative aspects and the managerial aspect.
So who would you say is the boss on the set?
Well, let me start by telling you that the producer is the rights holder. So he is the person who holds all the rights of the films. And sometimes directors and writers, they give their rights, or like they give their moral rights and intellectual rights to the producer. So he is able to produce the project and finalize it and distribute it at the end. So he is the rights owner of the film. And at the end of the day, definitely he is responsible as well of this product, because just imagine that you face a problem, the film goes to court. There's many things that you can endure during producing a film and even finalizing it. It is the producer who holds this on his shoulder. And what people don't know is, for instance, that the directors are here, so they make the film, and when it's finalized, of course, they are here to release it and to travel with the films, but at the end of the day, it is the producer who takes the charge of distributing this film, promoting for it, marketing for it, and then holds years and years and years of its life post its delivery. So, yeah. Halla, who can fire who? Ideally, in a perfect world, this combo, the director and the producer, are at the core of the film. And if they're not going to be working together in a beautiful collaboration, I think it's a big loss of time, and it's a pity that they collaborate from the very start.
Before we get into the technicalities of how you work with directors, let's get to know, why did you want to become a producer? Is it to be a boss of the set?
I didn't choose producing first, as a career. And when I look a little bit backwards and I look at my path, I think somehow it was not by coincidence, but it's like the universe around me managed everything for me to actually become a producer. So I come from a family who likes arts, basically, in general, music very much, and literature. All my sisters and my parents, they liked literature a lot, and I have two sisters mainly who are cinephiles. And one of them studied acting and theater directing. And I was 16, and I went to the set of shooting of her short film. And it was at that moment that I knew that cinema was the thing for me. It was what I wanted to do. But I didn't really know what, because cinema, it's very big. There's image, sound, production, set design. It's a big world. So I decided, and then I went to the university to study film. I studied directing, and I studied cinematography as well. So I decided to do both, and I did both. But I was always there to jump on the production side whenever there's a call for a producer or for a production manager. Just when I finished my studies, and back then in Lebanon, we didn't have actually producing studies. It happened just a few years ago. When I finished my studies in 2006, precisely, I was starting to work in commercials as a location scouter, sometimes as casting director. And my colleague tells me that there's a feature film shooting that will happen in Lebanon. It is a French production, and they need a coordinator on set to take care of the cars and the extras on set. And that was the first film of Nadine Labaki, Caramel. So I went, of course, for me, I just wanted to be next to a camera, you know, like a big camera. We were shooting on film stock back then. And of course, I wanted to be, and Nadine was, you know, this upcoming director making beautiful TV clips and making beautiful commercials. And I think that it was my first real encounter with producers. And Dominique Toussaint was the French producer. And I remember I used to watch her carefully. I used to like try to figure out what she's doing. She's here, but like she's not doing anything with her own hands, let's say. She's not as busy as the others, but she was always there, and I was intrigued by her persona as well. And I wanted to know like what is it effectively that she is doing, knowing that she is the most important person on set. And then trust was built throughout my experience on the set, and they started to give me more tasks and more responsibilities. So when the film ended, next year, 2007, it went to Cannes, and I was basically coordinating all this, and this was my induction into feature filmmaking, but not into being especially a producer. Long story short, I started to work as a production manager on a lot of kinds and categories of productions. So I did TV clips, commercials, short films, anything you can think about. Up until in 2009, my colleague and my friend at the university wanted to do his first short film. That was Do It Me by Eli Kamal. And so I was asking around, like, okay, how am I gonna finance this? How am I gonna help doing it? And I realized that I need funds to do it. And to be able to acquire the funds, I needed a company. So I sat with Eli, who was the director of this film back then, and another friend of mine who is a sound engineer and a sound designer. And we agreed on creating our company, which is known now by the Attic Productions. And this is how the journey started. But to be very much precise with you, of course, all of this, I haven't really understood what a producer does and all this creative aspect.
What's the difference between a production manager and a producer?
Yeah, I will tell you. So the production manager is here working for a short amount of time, no? He is only responsible to deliver actually the shooting, the production of the film within the time frame and within the budget. So his responsibilities are very limited. So he is here in this very specific phase of producing, and this is just before the production, the pre-production, and the production. The producer, I told you, he's here all of the time, and the production manager refers to the producer and is responsible towards the producer. I want to tell you a little story, and this is basically where I found my calling, and I say it is a calling because this is what actually it was. 2013, there was a lab called DocMed, and it was the Arab side of a European lab coming to Lebanon, and it was about gathering producers from the Arab world to develop their skills and develop their crafts. And for me,
Is a lab just like a workshop?
It is a workshop. It was like 3 or 4 sessions in 1 year, but applicants should be coming with a project. So, of course, for me, I studied directing and I wrote my project. I said, okay, I'm going to experiment with my own self. I'm going to write my project and produce it and just discover, like, what is this producing thing they want to teach us. So we go, and we were sitting on a table and everyone was pitching their projects. I did present mine, and then we did a round over the table, and there was a Syrian filmmaker called Lina Al-Abed. She stood up and she was pitching her project. It was about her father. She was looking for her father. She never met him after the war, and after that he disappeared. And for me, I felt so connected to what she was saying, and I decided to drop my project and to come on board and help her make her film. And I think this was the first time for me where I realized really what does it mean to produce, and what does a producer feel to be able to come on board on a project and produce something with a director or like another person.
So would you say the producer is always like adopting the story of the director, or do you choose your own stories?
There's a lot of adoption into making films, but you know, in the producing world, it goes in different ways. For us in the Arab world, producers, they don't really approach directors with projects they have. Mainly it's the other way around. So it is the director as well writing his film and looking for producers. So far, I haven't read a book that I want to turn into a film, or like I didn't have a thought that I want to develop and like go look for a writer or go look for a director to make it. So far, it has been the other way around. But I must tell you that the magic happens when you feel you are connected to an idea or to a film. Because producing with a director is like marriage, no? This will be 4 or 5 years minimum of your life. And if you don't like what you are working on, if you don't feel that it is your project as much as it is for the director, it's not worth it. It's a bad marriage that will end up with divorce.
And lost children.
Of course, and lost children, definitely.
So let's delve into more about the stories. Would you say that the stories you get driven to, or the stories that you usually choose, have a specific theme to them? Let's say they talk about a certain social issue, a certain political issue, or is it just a case-by-case basis?
This is something interesting to tackle, actually, because a few years back, I came to understanding of my own choices in making films. And it is as well when I started to teach at the universities and do some workshops that I wanted to prepare what I was going to, you know, like to tell the participants or the students about producing and how you make your choices. And then I remember one time I was preparing my class, and for me, it came out very clear that producing projects or selecting projects is who you are. There's nothing by chance, no? And when you decide to produce a film, like for me, for instance, I cannot produce something that doesn't make me feel excited or alert, or something that I can manifest within me. When a director tells me like about his idea, I feel something deep in here.
Butterflies.
And yes, and it lives with me. Sometimes it's not butterflies. Sometimes it can be like just take over my head, and I cannot get rid of it. You know, when you watch a film and you go, you sleep, you wake up, you feel that you are still reviewing the images or thinking about the questionings in the film. This is what happens to me when I get on board on a project. So yes, of course, the projects that you decide to produce, it is who you are. And who you are says a lot. It says about the things you like, the things you want to fight for, your statements, because every film holds your statements. It is what you want to put out to the world. It is what you're defending. It is as well your intentions. And this is why when we talk about being authentic, what does this mean? It's about really adopting projects that can convey something that you are convinced with and something that reflects your own beliefs and your own intentions.
If you find a story or a director with a story that you really believe in, how much influence do you have in the process of producing the film to really make it your own rather than work for the director, basically?
Yes. It depends on the directors as well, no? And it depends on the projects. In documentary films, there is a large space of creativity and of freedom where you can develop more and more each time at each phase of the film, because, you know, in documentaries, you keep on experimenting and then the film goes while you try making it. And you can as well finalize the film in the editing. So in the editing room, there is another rewrite that happens of the film itself. So there's like a margin of more of a collective thinking of the project. So you have like a more space to express and the wider space to exchange. It is as well more intimate because the documentary requires a minimum crew, let's say, and it is in direct relation to things. In fiction, it is a different aspect, let's say, because you follow a text, you follow a script, and then it's all written, and then you translate what's written, and it's not by surprise that you reach the post-production. It is what you have been working for the past 3 and 4 years. So it is no surprise. However, the most important phase of making a film is the research and the development phase. And this is the first phase. And I learned the hard way that spending time on this phase is basically not the recipe for success, but at least you would know that you did all your homework. So you studied well, you researched well, you spent some time on the writing, and you did strategize well and planned well, because when you shoot, that's it. خلاص.
When you research, what are you researching for exactly? Actors, like story, background information?
Yes, it is mainly the background. For the context, some films require like research in geopolitics. If you're tackling like a social issue, then you need to go and look for this. You need to try and find cases. You need to go talk to people. So there's a lot, it depends. And then in documentaries, it can be archival material. It can be, and sometimes it can be just as simple as reading books, watching films, all of this. It's all of this work that you spend before inviting other collaborators and other people to come on board and take it on with you.
So you spoke a little bit about the differentiation between working for a fiction and for a documentary. Would you say, I think that is what most people think, is that documentaries are like more serious than fictions and they actually deliver a message, whereas fictions are like for entertainment and just like for watching for like Friday night, not really delivering a message?
I heard this actually, but I think making this difference is not really accurate because, first of all, I don't believe that films must convey always a message. It's not for films to give messages to people. Films, they exist to exist and they convey what they need to convey. And sometimes you might like it and then you might not like it, or you might adopt it and you might not adopt it. But documentaries, it's because it's something that is real. It's something that is livable. And then fiction is more thought of and it's written and it's fictionalized at the end of the day. You're putting a set to create it. I don't really agree. You know, sometimes, especially in independent cinema, and this is the kind of films we do, I want to believe, and I really look at films in the way that when I decide to collaborate with a director, it's very important for me that we don't underestimate the audience mind, and we don't, make everything very plain. And when you think that the audience is that important and you need to basically be speaking to the minds, be it a fiction or be it a documentary, it's the same thing. Nowadays, there's no frontiers anymore with, you can hear like this is a docufiction, and then maybe you can like see a documentary where there are some fictionalized elements, and the formats are really coming together in a magical way.
In your experience, what would you say a film that has reached its potential from knowing the idea from the director and then researching about it and delivering it to the audience that you think is really important? Do you think that you achieved a point where a film actually resonates with the audience that you made the film for?
I also come from the school where I remind myself all the time that this is not a project that I'm making for myself, and this is not a project that the director is making for himself. If it was the case, then we would shoot, with the home video camera, we would screen it, invite friends and family, watch it, and then put it in the drawer, and that's it. When you think that a film's end is basically the eyes and the ears of a person, then you shape better your statements, because whatever you put in a film is something that you want to say. No, it's something that you want to speak louder about, or put there in the space. And this point of meeting the audience is very important, and it helps, of course, when you know that there's an audience that you want to target. It helps you define the way you're making the film, and it helps you find the tools of making it. If you're talking to kids, then you need to do your film in a certain way. If you want to target elderly, then it is different. If you then want to maybe reach to an audience who never heard of a certain thing that you are tackling, then you need in the film to advance all the set of information that is needed for them to understand your story. So it depends. But of course, now more and more, when we apply to funds, for instance, there is a tab, a requirement that asks you to develop like a paragraph about your distribution strategy and your audience outreach. And it's becoming more important, of course.
So talking about films that you feel related to, how did you realize when it was proposed to you or when you thought of the idea that you are the producer to be in place for this film? Like, how did you know that you belonged there?
I'm feeling that you are living in my head because you're asking questions of experiences. I can talk about a film that we're gonna be shooting very soon. It's called Suraya Munamur. And this this project was in Kumra last year and didn't have a producer. So Nicola, the director, was coming with this project, and it tackles the life of Suraya Baghdadi. She is the wife of Maroon Baghdadi, a very acclaimed Lebanese director who passed away in a weird situation. But the film is about how this woman is trying to construct herself and her life being an actress and a dancer within the absence, but still the presence of her husband, this iconic man. And I read the synopsis and I said, like, who's gonna produce this? I'm not letting anyone produce it. I want to produce it. And it was because, of course, it took to me. And these themes of, death and grief and, how you can just carry on building yourself in the absence of someone that you really loved and someone who considered you, his icon, can still be possible. So of course I felt that I need to make this film and I'm not letting anyone make this film. And I talked to the director and this is how we are working together on this film.
So we talked about working with directors. Another aspect of films that also involved collaborations is working with actors. Would you say that is also your job as a producer, or do you keep that for the director?
Well, let's try to put it in a nice way. I take over when the director doesn't want to to do it. It's very specific because just like the films, there's no actor that has like one way of being on set, and all actors are different. You have the junior actors, then you have the more senior actors, and it's a different approach. And you need to be there for everyone. Sometimes it is a collaboration with the director that you strategize on the way you're going to be dealing with the actor. So, and it depends on the film as well. Sometimes the director wants to keep the actors away, not to repeat a lot, not to rehearse a lot. And then some other times, no, he wants the actors to be closer, to be more organic with the sets, more organic with the team. It depends on the, on the situation he wants to create for them to deliver the characters they are playing.
What do you think? What are your general thoughts about the film industry in the MENA region?
When I say filmmaking in the MENA region, I have a big title in mind: obstacles, challenges. No, but to be more positive, let's say, I believe that we have a kind of a richness that the world lacks. And we come from different, it's true that we share the language, but we have different cultures, different traditions, and all this really plays a big role in bringing storytelling and different narratives to the screen. Um, I like our region because it is rich. I look at Egypt, for example. Egypt stands on its own in our industry. We all remember the old films, the black and white, the music, the magic of the Egyptian cinema. Then the North African cinema as well brought another taste for the MENA region, and this is the Tunisian cinema, Moroccan cinema, Algerian. The Levant area, which is the Middle East, and I'm talking about Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria as well, brought other perspectives on filmmaking, and sometimes they even collaborated in formats of co-productions with Egypt, and they made beautiful films, beautiful musicals, if we all remember. And then the area of the Arab Peninsula and the Gulf region that is starting actually to discover and to set the stones for the cinema. So for me, all this to say that the West, when they look at the Arab world or like when they look at the MENA region, they think it's one big continent that is actually, especially from a distribution perspective, they think that anything works for all of us, for all the MENA region residents as audiences. And this is not correct because to start with the dialects, for example, I don't necessarily understand Tunisian, and the Qatari, for instance, not necessarily understand, another country's dialect. So this is one thing, and then second, when we talk about humor, for instance, we don't deal with humor in the same way. So it's very rich. Now, I would say that looking at the international cinema, they have a focus on our region under Cinema du Monde. They call it, like the cinema of the world, as if
The
alternative
alternative.
cinema.
Mhm.
And I want to believe that we can bring stories that we want really to tell and not what we are expected to tell, not that what we are set to tell. all these stereotypes of, you know, what we see on screens coming from the region is not authentic, and it basically represents peels, you know, just like the the covers. But nowadays, I can say that there are a lot of authentic voices, a lot of strong voices, unique voices coming to screen with strong films and strong statements. And we are seeing them everywhere, collecting prizes, screening in big festivals, and touring the world. And of course, like sometimes they ask me, what is the difference between producer and the creative producer? For me, there's no difference. And the kinds of film we are doing, of course, a creative producer is always there. Producer on its own, this is only like multi big numbers, big zeros, budgets next to it. But yes, we are on set, and we deal with actors, and we deal with all the crew, not only the actors, and sometimes even the politics around the location. You need to be aware.
So personally, I got into film through Ajyal. Yani I consider myself a child of Ajyal. But I think we can say that throughout the region, there are more film festivals, especially, let's say, more independent film festivals. Do you agree with that? Do you think that the rise in festivals and newer industries contributes to an authentic representation of the Middle East?
Thank you. Now I am noticing that you're bringing the word industry in your questions, and this is very important because alongside the foundations of our craft, we should be founding more the industry aspect of it. You know, previously directors used to direct their films, write them, and produce them. Now you would see that the producers are stepping ahead and trying to make from this an industry. But having an industry cannot be only the effort of people of people in the industry. This needs a lot of efforts from many people on the level of personal initiatives. So this is, of course, you, me, everyone working in the field, and then, of course, on the governmental level, to actually make from cinema part of the cultural strategy of a country, because it's very important. Cinema is like a book, you know, it's like literature, it's like anything else. So it needs to be combined with the efforts of everyone to basically establish this industry. And what we are lacking, especially, is the circuit, you know, the circuit that starts from the production but ends up in the audience to be brought back to producing another film, and then the cycle continues and it is sustainable on its own. Bringing back, talking about the festivals, not only the festival, but the funds as well. It's been almost 20 years that we are noticing this rise of regional funds, regional institutions, regional festivals, helping the narratives having a bigger screen and a bigger opportunity to exist. We, unfortunately, not all of us in our countries have similar chances and similar foundations. But in the current circumstances, I think that it is very important for us to be together, to join forces, to have a network, because some countries are more fortunate, let's say, in the financing capacities. In some other countries, you would find that the creative aspects are more pushed. You can find writers. In other countries, the technical teams are very professional and they have the experience. So I think all of us together can really make a force to bring this industry more forward, and to put more weight on the productions. And I hope we can reach a space where we like not just be happy about the festivals, but really think of components of for the industry.
So, when talking about the industry as a tool of representation, maybe soft power for the countries, for their region, we see some people diverging towards commercial industries, which get more exposure because that's their sole reason for existing, while other countries or other people in the industry prefer independent films that, let's say, represent real issues of the people, that are not there only for entertainment but for delivering a message. What would you say is more effective, more efficient in rising the industry as a whole in the region? Because we see in the West, for example, they're more popular in their commercial industries, and maybe that helped the independent scene as well rise.
Um, I'm not against commercial cinema. I think there are people doing commercial and there is an audience for commercial. And I think that every aspect of this industry helps the other side as well, because even when you like do commercial cinema, you are somehow training people, you are offering possibilities, you are proving that cinema sector in general can be something economically beneficial, and then you can build on. In the West, and I can give the example of France, for instance. I don't know if you know, but like the biggest fund France has comes from the tax on the cinema tickets of the people going to cinemas. So imagine this is a sustainable way to sustain the independent filmmaking through the gains and the taxes from the box office of the commercial cinema, And this brings us back to what we discussed about the strategy. This needs to be a cultural strategy for the states, for our countries. And this is basically as well how you can think in a strategic way, economically, to feed the sectors. I'm not against, commercial cinema. I think there's space for everything, but it is our duty to know where to place ourselves and where to position what we want to say and to find the audiences for our films.
To circle back to alternative cinema or independent cinema, I want to focus on your experience with REEF. It's a very niche aspect of cinema. Why did you start it? Why did you choose to focus on something that's not mainstream?
Thank you for bringing REEF up. Um, REEF, I remember the first time I heard about REEF because I didn't initiate it myself. I was scouting for a film in a very far area in Lebanon. And I opened my Facebook and I found Aflamuna making this initiative combining environment with cinema. And environment for me has been always a main matter in my life. So I said to myself, like, how can this even be possible? Some people I know working on environment and cinema together, and I'm not involved. I felt very left on the side. So I went from my film scouting from the location, drove 4 hours to a rural area in Lebanon just to join this team working on this festival. So what we do in Reef is basically we tackle urgent issues from the environment through film. And for me, it brings another layer of magic to all of our industry. The most important thing about REEF is that it is not centralized. Access to culture and access to cinema and access to films has always been somehow for the niche people living in the big cities, living on the next to the seashores, living in the central areas. And we tend to forget that we have a big audience in the rural areas who have no access to anything. And this is a place where we need to cultivate and nurture audiences from grassroots. And when you allow this meeting point between the cinema that you are providing, the good films, films that are fighting for a cause, let's say, or have a message, I think it is a great initiative, and I really hope to be able to carry on with it.
What do you think is the future or the potential for alternative sectors or alternative industries like REEF in the region as a whole?
For us, it is actually it is a one of a kind festival in the region. But more and more, last year we got contacted by a festival wanting to talk about marine biodiversity in the UAE, for instance. And this year we have been contacted as well from a festival in Morocco, who want to bring this environmental aspect into the rural areas. So I think when we really think about it and we know the importance of reaching audiences in places where cinema is not an option, it is becoming more and more crucial to have parallel initiatives and to create a kind of even a network, a network of maybe associations working for culture, for art, for the good of human in general in the rural areas. And yeah, I hope this to be like a new space where we can experiment new audiences.
So let's track back to how you entered production. So my question here is that there's nothing that you study to become producer. You have to know everything to become a producer.
Unfortunately. um, so I must say that this is a craft that is much learned on the ground than in books and in research, because it is about the dynamics of relations and it is about your own self-development. Like for me, the moment when I decide to work on a project, the crucial thing for me is to ask myself, am I the right person to do this film? Do I have the sets of knowledge and information and skills to do it? Because sometimes some people send me their projects and I look at the project. It is either needing co-productions or big budgets or something that I don't know about. And then I ask myself, okay, am I the right person to do it? Sometimes it might not. And then I would know that this project is not for me. So this is a key thing. And then working on your own self, your own development is much needed. And knowing the other departments, knowing all the other elements of making a film helps you, because this is how you will budget your film. This is how you will strategize for it. And then knowing a little tips, so maybe you would understand when a cinematographer is telling you, like, I need, I don't know, like a big lighting on the set. You would know that he's not just asking this because he wants it to be like a very big production, but he needs it because the sun will go at 6 p.m. and then you cannot carry on with the shoot. And this is going on all departments and it involves. So of course, it is important for you to learn about the different aspects of producing. And for me, coming as well from line producing helped me a lot, because I was always on sets. I know what it takes to make a film. And when I make a film, I'm always much hands-on the production. Yeah, and that's definitely helpful.
Thank you so much, Jana. It's really been insightful to hear about your creativity, to hear about the inspiration you get and the impact you leave behind. I think we cannot finish this episode without hearing some more creativity from you, from your special talent. So if you would please.
Thank you so much. I'm not gonna say if you insist, because I usually sing directly. I will sing a little piece from the Palestinian heritage, and it is about speaking up and loud. لو رحل صوتي ما بترحل حناجركم، عيوني على بكرة قلبي معكم. لو راح المغني بتضل الأغاني تجمع القلوب المكسورة والبتعاني.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.